What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Gunfish TV. I want to thank you for tuning in to my channel today. I appreciate it very much. What I'm doing today is something that I'd actually mentioned on a YouTube post a little while ago, and I basically asked if you all would like for me to do a video on how I prepare for a tournament. So I haven't been able to get around to it. Finally, I'm actually out here right now getting ready to prepare for a tournament. It's about 100 degrees out here, so it is smoking hot. But I wanted to just kind of go over what I basically do kind of mentally and equipment-wise and boat-wise for a tournament. I'm not going to get super in depth, but I'm going to go over the absolute basics of what I do to make sure I am prepared for a bass tournament. And the way I do it is kind of methodical, and I kind of work from one area to the next, and then I kind of finish up with the boat. So basically the way that I begin is with the mental aspect of it. So of course you want to take into account, you know, where you're going fishing. So if you're going to obviously a deep clear lake, you know, this time of year you might be looking at cranking, you might be looking at a drop shot, you know, Carolina rig, something like that. If we're going to a river like I am tomorrow, I'm going back out to the river tomorrow for my tournament, you know, I'm going to be looking more at, you know, muddy water, potential top water, a flipping bite, you know, maybe a shaky head, something like that. But that's going to be my secondary type plan, would be the smaller stuff, and I'm going to start off kind of hot and heavy in the beginning. So basically what I do is I take into account where I'm going. How do I think that I'm going to catch the fish? So tomorrow, I believe that I'm going to catch the fish on a frog. I'm going to catch them on a buzzbait, and I would like to catch them flipping. Okay, so obviously power fishing techniques. So I'm going to make sure that I have those rods and reels ready for those techniques on the deck. So like right here, I have my buzzbait rod. Okay, so I have my buzzbait rod right here with the old horny toad on it, and this is one of my top producing baits this time of year. So what you want to do, being I know that I'm probably going to throw this lure a lot tomorrow, I want to make sure that I have, you know, a good knot, I have good line, I have a good horny toad already on my buzzbait. You know, so I want to be prepared. I don't want to get there and I know this is going to be my primary technique, and, you know, my line is frayed. I have an old ragged, you know, soft plastic on here that's no good. You know, my buzzbait blade is messed up. You know, then right off the top, that kind of puts you behind. You're having to do something that you could have done beforehand. So you're taking away from time that you could be fishing. So I want to make sure that I have everything ready to go, because your equipment is very important. You know, your equipment is very important, and things are going to happen. Things are going to happen. Like last week, I had a brand new, or a Revo SX that wasn't but 2 months old, and my drag, even though it was cranked down, it started slipping. I mean, like, it was just, line was just stripping out, and it cost me some fish. And, you know, that's one of those things that you kind of can't control, but any variable that you can control, you want to be able to control it as much as possible. So going through your equipment, having good line, good knots, and good lures. So if you have, if you're frog fishing, if you know you're probably going to be throwing a frog or flipping, you want to have a good frog tied on. You want to already have your legs trimmed. You want to have your hooks turned up like you want them. You know, you want to have a good frog. You don't want one on there that you used last week that was sinking at the end of the day, and you start fishing with it, and you're like, oh God, I gotta tie another frog on, and you know, there you are, 5 minutes sitting in the bottom of the boat trimming legs and doing this and that. You know, you don't want to run into that. Same with soft plastics. You pick up your flipping setup, you don't want to have an old raggedy plastic on there that's no good, and you know, you're having to go down in the box and get another plastic out. So make sure that your rod and reels are ready to go, good line, good knots, new leader lines tied on your spinning setups where you throw braid or bait cast setups, however you do it. You want that to be ready to go. So when you pull up to your first spot, you grab your rod and reels, you have on what you think you're going to catch them on, and you go from there. Of course, you may have a secondary plan, like I said, of tomorrow. I guess my secondary plan would probably be like drop shot, which I hope I don't have to throw, but also a shaky head. I got a big wake bait on, and of course, always on the deck, I have a crankbait, a chatterbait, a spinnerbait, and then some sort of top water popper. I always have those on the deck, but you want to make sure that you have what you're primarily going to throw on the deck, and then you also have a secondary game plan as well, where you might have to back up and go finesse, but you want to have those rods ready, because you don't want to say, oh, they're not biting top water, or they're not biting on a flipping bait, so I have to go with a spinning rod, but I didn't tie a new leader on. So you're sitting in the bottom of the boat, you're rigging up a shaky head, tying on a new leader. You don't want to get into that. You want to have everything ready to go. So first things, I think about what I'm going to throw, what I think is going to be the primary technique for that day, and I make sure I have those ready, but then I also make sure that I have my secondary rods, or the secondary technique rods, ready to go as well. That saves a lot of time. And when you're fishing a tournament like I am tomorrow, that's only 4 hours long, and by the time I run to where I'm going and run back, if I take away my run time, I legitimately only have about 3 hours and 15 minutes to fish. So you have to take that into account, because time is everything. Time management is everything when it comes to a tournament. So having a plan, and I don't mean you have to just have an absolute game plan and stick to it 100%, because I have noticed that when I've done that, a lot of times I don't do as well in tournaments as some tournaments when I just go by the seat of my pants and I say, I'm just going to go here and fish hard, and I make wise decisions, stop at good areas, and I end up doing well in tournaments. But I'm prepared. So I got everything ready to go as far as my rod and reels, what lures I think that I am going to catch them on. I have them readily available. So in regards to that, like my soft plastics, if I think I'm going to catch them on a wacky Cinco, or if I think that I'm going to catch them on a Zoom speed crawl or a Strike King rage bug, I make sure that I have those very easily accessible in my boat. So I've taken them out of my storage and I have them at an easily accessible area. So whether I have some little clips like up underneath my rod locker right here where I can raise it up and they're hanging right there, or if I have them up front in another storage compartment, they're very easy to find. So you want to make sure that you have your equipment ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to the next item, which is going to be the boat, and we're going to talk about that. All right, so up next is a clean, organized boat. Okay, you want your boat to be relatively clean. You don't want it to be junky, just mess strode everywhere, just falling over everything. And I know some of you may fish out of John boats and have a smaller platform. I do as well. So you try to, get your stuff as organized as possible, but sometimes it's a little under your feet or whatever. But you want to try to have everything as organized as possible in your boat. So you catch a big fish or you hang a big fish, your partner is going for the net. They're able to move around and get it, or you're getting the net for your partner, whatever. You don't want to be falling all over stuff. So you want to be organized as best as you can. And personally, I like for my boat to be fairly clean when I go fishing at all. I like things to be pretty organized. I like for my carpet to be nice and clean, my seats to be clean. I don't know, it's just a confidence thing for me. So everybody's a little bit different. Some people don't care about that, and that's perfectly fine. But that's just something that I look at. It gives me more confidence. My stuff is organized. I know everything is where I can find it easily. My net is readily available. I make sure I have everything in my boat that is needed. So of course, you need a net. You need, your golden rule to measure your fish with. You need cold floats. You want to make sure that you have all these things in your boat and ready to go before tournament day. There's nothing worse than getting to a tournament, catching your first fish. You don't have a ruler to measure your fish with. You forgot your net at home. You want to make sure that your boat is ready to go. Something else that's very important, and I've seen people do this, and I don't know how in the world they do it, but is charging your batteries. make sure that your batteries are charged before you go fish a tournament. You know, with the availability of onboard chargers now, it's easier than ever to be able to just plug your onboard charger in and charge your batteries. But yet some people still, you know, they don't buy new batteries. They have old batteries that wear down fast. They get there, their motor won't start. I check all that out before I leave because, I mean, things can go wrong. Batteries can go dead very fast. But most of the time with trolling motor batteries, they let you, especially lead acid or AGM batteries, they kind of let you know when they're getting weak. You know, I know lithiums can kind of go out all of a sudden, but, you know, you want to make sure that your boat is ready to go. You have plenty of oil in your motor, in your oil tank. You have plenty of gas in your boat for however long a run that you're going to do. You don't want to have a quarter tank of gas in your boat and that morning you decide, you know, you want to make a 30-mile run and you can't do it because you didn't put any gas in your boat. That's where that where that being prepared comes into play. You want to be prepared. You want your boat to be prepared. And that helps with the mental aspect of the game because fishing is very, very mental. It is a huge mental game. And sometimes things throw you off. You know, I get thrown off a little bit easier than I like to be thrown off. I'm going to be honest with you. But, you know, having things organized and knowing that I have my boat ready to go, everything is good. I have spare equipment. I have a spare prop for my boat motor. If something happens with my prop, I have a spare trolling motor prop. I have tools. I have all of this in my boat. And it helps me be more prepared and more mentally prepared, being that I know if something happens, I have everything available right there to fix it. You know, I also like to keep spare reels in my boat as well. That way if something goes down, I can grab one. You know, it's a mental aspect of the game. Fishing is hugely a mental game. And when something throws you off, it can mess you up. And especially when something happens early on in a tournament, it can ruin the rest of your day if you really let it get to you. And like I said, I've done better with trying to let things not get to me, but things still get to me from time to time. And I try not to let it, but you know, some things do. And it's natural. We're all human. That's the way it is. You know, so like I said, your boat, clean, organized, batteries charged. Make sure you have oil in your motor. You have gas. You're full of gas. Everything's ready to go. Your graphs are working. You have your keys. I've seen people just forget some of the most important stuff ever. Didn't have a net. You know, didn't have a ruler to measure their fish. Just crazy stuff like that. But it happens every day. It happens every day because people just aren't prepared. So that is definitely another huge aspect of it. You know, also like, you know, a weigh bag. You know, you want to make sure that you have these things and you're prepared. So at a weigh-in, you can go up there and have your fish in a weigh bag. But, you know, these are the main things that I make sure of. You know, and then also, you know, I know some of you wanted me to talk about my mental approach to a tournament. And I know I touched on this a little bit earlier when I was talking about, you know, like what lures I'm gonna throw, what rod and reels I'm gonna have on the deck, you know, based off of where I'm gonna fish at, you know, whatever. But as far as the mental aspect of it, is I try to think, to pre-plan. So I've got something back here flying, hitting my wall. I don't know what it is. But anyway, so I try to pre-plan for a tournament, especially if it's somewhere I've never been to. So obviously if I've never been somewhere, I'm going to get on Google Earth. I'm going to be looking at Google Earth. I'm going to be looking at points, channel swings if I can see them, you know, areas, backs of pockets, you know, depending on what time of year it is, flats, things like that. Google Earth can tell you a lot. But also I'm going to get out here and I'm going to sit in my boat and I'm going to cut on my Garmin and my Lowrance and I'm going to look at my mapping. You know, it has, of course, you know, units now have detailed contours, depth contours, so you can really figure things out. So I'm going to sit down and look at that and I'm going to come up with some areas that I want to start at and I'm going to put waypoints on them. So I'm going to have a mental note of where it is and I'm going to have a mark on my graph so I can run to them first thing that morning. You know, if it's an area that I'm familiar with, like say the river, you know, a lot of that comes just from years and years and years of fishing the same body of water and kind of knowing, based on the time of the year, where the fish should be, what they should be doing, how they tend to bite, what lures they tend to bite better. And this year it hasn't worked out very well for me because the bite's been really weird. We haven't had a lot of rain, and it's made the bite really tough. I'm not gonna lie. But, you know, like for tomorrow, I have some shorelines that I know I'm gonna start at based off of history, and I know what lures I'm gonna start with. So I'm probably gonna start with the buzzbait, you know, and that's a confidence lure, but it's also a lure that I've caught a lot of fish on this time of year, and I've caught good ones on it. You know, the frog, flipping, those are baits I know that I'm gonna throw as well, but I always try to have that game plan so I'm mentally prepared. But then I also know, and I have to tell myself, that I cannot try to force this bite too much. Sometimes things just don't work, and you have to give it up. And you have to go to your secondary game plan. You have to pick up that wacky Cinco. You have to pick up that drop shot. That's something that I used to be really, really, really bad about, is I would stick to my guns and I would throw that frog, or I would flip, or I would, power fish. And sometimes it really paid off. It really paid off, and I got just 5 bites, and luckily they were good ones, and I was able to get them in the boat. Or it didn't work out at all, and I came up there and I had struggled all day, and guys had caught good bags on the finesse worm or wacky Cinco because they had slowed down, and I tried to force a power fishing bite on these fish, and I ended up not doing well. So you have to be able to adjust, and you have to tell yourself that that you might have to adjust. You hope that what you want to do is going to be what they're on and what's going to work out and your areas are going to work out, but you have to be mentally prepared to know that it might not work out, and a lot of times it doesn't, and you have to change techniques and you have to go to a different area. And sometimes different areas are sitting down, looking at your graph, and going to a new spot, a new fresh spot, and getting that confidence back up, getting rejuvenated. Because sometimes being in that same area and fishing the same old things that have produced in the past, they might not produce this time around, and a new spot could be the spot. You could pull up, you could catch 5, you could win, you could catch a very important fish. So even though I've fished the same areas, the same rivers for my whole life, there's still some shorelines that I haven't fished before, and every once in a while I'll pull up on one of them as kind of a last ditch effort, and it'll really pay off. So like I said, be prepared here, be prepared with your rod and reels and your tackle, and make sure your boat is prepared. You want to be prepared mentally, you want to be prepared with your tackle, and you want your boat to perform like you know it can perform, and you want to know that if something goes wrong a little bit, you have what it takes to fix it. Whether it be a reel, whether it be a prop, anything like that, that comes in hugely when it comes to the mental game of bass fishing and bass fishing tournaments. So sometimes I sit out here and I respool everything. Luckily tonight I don't have to respool anything because I just did last week, but I am going to go through and retie all my lures so I have fresh knots on everything. I have fresh soft plastics. I'm going to make sure my frog is good. It's the right color that I want to be throwing. And fresh body on my buzz bait. Going to retie everything. I also got a reel that I got to put on a rod, but I'm going to have all that done before tomorrow, because I don't want to get there tomorrow, dump my boat in, and I'm scrambling trying to get things ready before we launch, before we blast off. So take these things into consideration. Hopefully next tournament, you'll be prepared. Maybe you learned something from this video. Maybe this is what you do already. And if you do something a little different than this, let me know in the comments down below. But like I said, you want to be prepared up here. It's a huge deal. Mental preparation is big time in bass fishing. So I really appreciate y'all watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Go check out some of my other videos where I'm actually fishing. And I'll see you next time on Gunfish TV.